Good morning, happy Friday. It's a lovely morning this morning. Been sat here just listening to the rain fall from the trees. It's the last weekend in the UK before the clocks turn to winter time, so we'll get an hour more daylight in the morning. And it's actually got to that time of year now where I have to wait for the light to be just about right for me to be able to come down here and record. I was just sat here thinking, tuning into the field, seeing what would be most appropriate to look at and discuss. And usually I would cover things along the lines that I am experiencing myself. I'm going through another physical clearing at the moment with all the delightful symptoms that you get alongside that. So just allowing my body to rest a little bit. But I think the most appropriate content this morning would be to look at a subject that I've covered in many different formats, and that's looking at fear. Okay, now fear is something that we live with every day. It's been part of our matrix experience. In order to engage with the reality that we've existed in 3D, fear was both a form of enemy, but it would also keep us safe. Having, you know, the old saying, having a natural amount of fear is a positive thing, because you can never be too trusting of your environment, or you know, it's always better to be safe than sorry, or all of the other aspects of it. And that key component has been about survival. It's been about how we exist and stay alive in kind of possession of our physical bodies during our passage through 3D, and it's been very appropriate. But what it has become in our current phase of our process, where we are mixing and merging with this spaghetti, this soup bowl of energies, 3D, 4D, 5D, fear has become almost weaponized, or very much so, in order to create further bonds and attachments with the third dimension. As the light becomes higher, as more light shines into our everyday process, the more of this fear, whether it be buried or whether it be actually visible within the fields, becomes noticeable. It becomes something that we then are interacting with. And when we begin to interact with it on the level of consciousness that we are currently navigating, fear becomes a choice. So how we interact with a situation, how we interact with a piece of news, how we face a situation that is within our reality, it all comes down to that core component. Are we reacting from a point of fear, or are we reacting from a point of love? So now you see that I am covering again a subject which has come up so regularly, particularly within the last 2 years or so, because our bond, our bindings to the 3D matrix are primarily rooted in fear. Okay, without that attachment of fear, we are free. Okay, so if you look at how we live physically on this planet, how we survive, the things that we do on a daily basis to remain comfortable, providing for ourselves, and all these other aspects of our physical existence, when the plug appears to be pulled on any of those, fear sets in as a survival mechanism, as a defense mechanism for us to take action and therefore fix whatever situation may be coming that would be threatening to our existence here. So at the moment, at this present time, particularly within this current field of energy. We're on the other side of the eclipse now. Many shadows were revealed during that eclipse, more so than I think that we were comfortable with. Really mixed the pot up, didn't it? Well, on the matrix level now, and what's comforting for me to and probably for many of you as well, is that we aren't the only people that are talking about the matrix being the matrix. This terminology now seems to have become a common, it's become a common word amongst those that understand the structure of where we've been and where we're going. A lot of people don't know where we're going, or they've got presumptions, a presumptuous idea of where we're going, or just simply sailing along with the flow of energy. But they do know that the previous programming and attachments were actually belonged to a matrix structure, and that's great. That shows a very high level of understanding of the dynamics of the system energetically that we've moved ourselves out of. But the common activity on a daily basis of this blessed beloved 3D matrix is to draw us back in. And it's all, and as I was tuning into the energies of it, I heard the words repeated: project fear. So the project is to resume that vibration of fear within us. Now that can be triggered by presenting us with information that is triggering, predicting things that are going to occur around us. I've noticed recently that there's a big return to the theme that a lot of us grew up with or became very familiar with in the 80s, which is the nuclear theme. Now that particular resonance, that chime of fear, exists within our DNA, because there was if I remember rightly and my information is correct, the nuclear factor also played a part in the fall of Atlantis, or if not, the structural, the actual destruction part, the fall part, was very similar to what we've experienced in real time in physical, particularly within the last 100 years or so. So as soon as people start mentioning, or the media starts mentioning, survival, preparation, take steps, this could happen, what happens? The alarm bells start ringing, people move into a state of survival, fear. Okay, so again, I believe we should be looking at this very carefully. And if you were facing a gate, if you were stood, say, in a gladiator arena, this is just the analogy that occurs to me. If you were in a gladiator's arena and the gates were shut, and you knew as soon as the gates were opened you were going to have to face whatever came out, how or what is the best way to face that? You're going to do it from the highest, you're going to have to do it from the highest possible perspective, in the calmest state, to move through it. So this is a little bit what I feel like we're facing at the moment. We're facing the next phase of whatever the 3D matrix is going to let out of the gates. So we're stood in our lines. The lines in the sand have been drawn. We know that we are retaining our high frequency. We know that we are building a certain structure in accordance with the natural laws of the universe and creation, and yet we're being constantly invited to step back into this vibration of fear and lose our abilities to stay in tune with our hearts and create from a higher level. So this is where we are at the moment. So I feel during November we are going to be, or need to be, particularly vigilant again with the information that we're drawing in, the information that's within the field. What's beautiful and very, and it never ceases to get tired. It's never a situation that I get tired of seeing and perceiving, is how many people are now unplugged and awake to this scenario. It's almost like this information comes cascading out. The news says this, the media says that, this particular outlet is shouting about this, any other incidents occurring, but people are like, do you know what? I've sailed through the past 2 years. The last 2 years have woken me up. I know that I don't need to be worried about this, because it is all talk, it's all hot air in order to get me to embody a certain vibration and a certain state. So all of us light workers who are holding this higher frequency, now is the time to be even more disciplined, even more vigilant with holding that light, because a huge amount of fear around certain incidents is due to be released, it's due to be alchemized. And all of this is going to be occurring in preparation for the solstice, of course. Okay, so when we reach the December solstice, we'll be celebrating it as a winter solstice in the north, and it will be the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. The preparation leading up to that is, generally speaking, pretty intense. Aren't they all, though? All of the spiritual dates that we experience now are intense. I don't think you can apply a structure of which one is more intense than the other, because they've all got their own very personalized dynamics depending on where we are and what energy we're moving through. But in order to apply the quantity of Christ light that comes in during the December solstice, you have to have prepared the bed for it to actually anchor into. So we're going to be releasing again, or we already are. And so when fear becomes visible, when fear becomes part of a reality that we are given the option to tune into, the way to deal with it is to observe it. And if it is ringing the fear bell within us, then we look inside and see which aspects of us are still attached into that, what we are investing in. So yeah, that's almost what I would consider a bit of an energy prediction, something that I think and feel that we might be experiencing. Or on the other side of the coin, we might all now be so seasoned that this is just simply something that goes over the top of our heads, as if we've just ducked our heads under the water and just allowed it to flow by. But there are those around us who will not be in that position. They will not be in that state. They will be drawn in, they will be triggered, they will be ignited in a way that will have then a resonant effect via their bodies and fields on the people around us. So let's start alchemizing. Okay, if we become aware of this particular form of fear, control, manipulation via 3D, then we alchemize it. We stand and we hold our light. Doesn't mean that we don't feel or acknowledge our own feelings. Those are more important than anything else at the moment, because they're our guides, they're our lead, they're our internal compass into how we are navigating. Okay, so when I'm talking about rising above the storm, rising above the matrix level, and observing from a compassionate, but stepping back and observing with compassion without being invested in, that doesn't mean that you feel nothing. Okay, it means that you are able to deal with your own triggers and your own situations and the things that are coming up within you, so that you have clarity to observe the picture from a higher perspective, rather than being drawn into it and triggered within that field of energy. So energy management, personal mastery, rising above fear, and all of these other things are going to become, I think, a little bit of a theme and a key for November. And as I said in my last update, we can either accept this as being something which we can move through with an easy flow, or we can swim against the tide and we can swim against the current and we can make a huge song and dance about it and get drawn in. Alchemy is key, okay? We are alchemists, we're master alchemists, all of us. As soon as we apply our heart frequencies or our powers of alchemy to situations, then they immediately rise to our frequency and that field becomes set. So all of this fear preparation, sorry, I couldn't get my words out right then. All of this fear preparation, all of this triggering that's going on, step out of that field. And this is also something which I'm witnessing occurring within the, almost like within the boundaries of our own light worker field. There's a lot of intercompetition or sometimes in many cases calling out of modalities. If you are seeing something or someone that isn't resonating with you, just move away from that. Okay, we're not judge and jury and sometimes executioner of things that we don't see or deem appropriate. And there's a lot of that going on, particularly in what I call in inverted commas the truther community. So that's not our business. Our business is to be our own truth, to be our own light. But when we speak those words, when we bring that information through, it comes from a point of love, okay? There's always been something which I found very interesting. A lot of souls will embody this pathway and will speak truth from a point of honesty as opposed to the heart vibration. So sometimes honesty can be a little bit like a blunt axe. It can come crashing through situations and circumstances without actually having a positive effect, rather than a heartfelt truth that is coming from a point of love that is just simply expressed. And those words, those vibrations then lift. It's our job to lift those around us into a higher state, into a state of peace, into a state of liberation from fear. Okay, the liberation from fear is our strongest ally, our key to this current phase of the ascension process. On the other side of this, when we have achieved this united and cooperative higher state of frequency, we're not going to need to worry about it anymore. We're simply going to have our own structures filled with our own integrity, light, honesty, truth, compassion, higher communication, heart-based frequencies. And the things that we are triggered by or that we potentially fear from 3D will no longer exist. And that's for the future. Okay, that's for what we're creating. But we can start by creating it now in conscious reality. Okay, because all of these timelines, these potential outcomes, they're all mixed and merged together at the moment. And the soup bowl is very confusing. That's why at this halfway point through this intensive shift, things now feel more pressurized than ever. So take the choice to step away from fear, from drama, from all of the things that, and again, another indication of the polarity of the times that we live in. The majority of this can be found on social media. Now, social media has been, in my opinion, our biggest ally in this connectivity that we've had planet-wide. Okay, so without, say, for example, Facebook, which a lot of people really don't like, you know, they don't like the censorship, they don't like the fact that this is all controlled, but really and truly, how much of it is controlled when we can connect our frequencies around the planet and we can still speak to each other. We just simply do so in a way that doesn't trigger all of these little AI bots that seem to kind of watch every word that we're talking about. So there's always ways and means of communication, and when you use the words that are coming through your heart and then are spoken via the throat chakra and obviously therefore projected into physical reality by your mouth, your vocal cords, your conscious perception, the focus of your third eye as you are speaking the words. The whole thing becomes a creation of love. So with this increase that I am potentially perceiving of the fear that is going to be pushed upon us, let's take action as it is presented. The second we are presented with it, we step back into the higher frequency, we alchemize, we raise our vibration. Okay, and this force, this wave of energy, once it moves, once we become acquainted with how fast we can do it, how fast we can react, how fast we can change the dynamics of circumstances that are being presented to us, it just becomes easier and easier until it is literally second nature. Okay. Really enjoying this vibration that's coming in, this presentation, this Scorpio energy. Scorpio, the intensity of the astrological sign of Scorpio is very piercing. It sees through the depths. It sees through all of the illusions and the shadows, but the shadows are also accepted, they're embraced. So once we start doing that, once we start really seeing through what is being presented to us, then we can start actually working on how free we truly are. And once we've stepped into a state of fearlessness, fearlessness is the key to freedom and stepping up into from ego to heart and staying there. Okay, so sending you all so much love, and I hope you have a beautiful Friday and a wonderful weekend, and I'll be back on Monday. Bye for now.